Vegas newbies, Vegas vets, and everyone in between. This is Josh with Big Slick Vegas, and for today's video, this is part 3 of our Vegas frequently asked questions, and this one concerns where do I stay, which hotel to stay at. This is probably the most common question I see on social media, and it's also one of the hardest ones to answer because it can be very subjective, and a lot of it just comes down to really what you want out of a hotel. You know, a lot of it comes down to how much you're willing to spend, what your budget is, what kind of dining options you want the hotel to have. Do you want it to have a really nice pool area, a day club, or are you indifferent to that? There's all kinds of other things like what kind of attractions, what is it located on the strip, then what part of the strip, also, or do you want to stay downtown? How big are the rooms and all that? Does the rooms contain like a in-room mini fridge for your own items? All that. So we're going to try and cover that the best I can today. A lot of this is just based on my own personal experiences and a lot of feedback that I see on social media with other YouTubers, as well as what I see on Facebook. So first, let's start what places you might want to avoid staying at. And fortunately, most of the places in Vegas are really good to stay at, no matter what your price level is. But there are a handful that I would probably avoid. And we'll start like downtown, for example. One would be probably the Apache Hotel at Binion's. Now, I like the casino there at Binion's, but the rooms are really small. You don't even really get a good view out of them because the windows have been frosted over. And I've seen a lot of feedback where they had problems with the air conditioning or problems with the heater if it's during the winter, and you know, just a lot of maintenance issue with those rooms. So that one I would avoid. They do say that hotel is haunted, so I guess if you're a ghost adventurer, maybe you'd want to check it out for a night and just see if you see any ghosts or any hauntings, but that's still overall one I would avoid. Another one too would be like the Golden Gate. Once again, the rooms are really small. They're kind of outdated, haven't been necessarily well kept, but and for the price you can get, just there are a lot of other better options to choose downtown than going to Golden Gate or to the Apache Hotel at Binion's. Now, going to the Strip, one I might avoid is the Strat. Also used to be known as the Stratosphere. Now, as a hotel, as far as the rooms goes, it's really not a bad property. It's just that the neighborhood around it can be a little shady. So that's something you probably might be uncomfortable with, especially at night. Also, as you can see, it's at the very north end of the Strip, so there isn't really a whole lot within walking distance of the Strat. So, once again, I mean, the hotel itself's not bad. It's just its location mainly. Another thing you want to avoid is all up and down the Strip. There are going to be a lot of small little motor lodges, travel lodges, a lot of little locally owned places. I would avoid those too. A, you're not really saving that much money by staying there. B, you're really not getting the full Vegas experience staying at one of those places. And most importantly, there's like the safety and security concerns you might run into. Those places sometimes can avoid a bit of a sketchy crowd, shall we say. So not everyone, but oftentimes they're more likely to run into incidents at those places, so I would probably stay away from those. Another one I would probably not. One that I would definitely avoid too is the Oyo Hotel. This used to be the old Hooters Hotel, and before that it was the San Remo. And, you know, the casino area there is not bad, but once again, as far as the rooms there to stay at, they often hear things where rooms haven't been well kept, well maintained. They also typically, I've even heard stories of them having a bit of a stench inside the rooms. So that's one place I would avoid. And let's see here, another one too. And this one always comes up, and that's Circus Circus. Once again, you know, it's worth a visit at least once in your lifetime, I suppose. But room-wise, it kind of runs into the same problem that Oyo has. Rooms are outdated, not well maintained. Sometimes they have a funky smell. So it's just not a place that's really worth staying at. Now, I guess they are. I just recently heard they're going to be putting a lot of money in there and renovating everything in that property. So maybe down the road it'll be a better place to stay, but as of right now, I would avoid it. So now let's go on to places that you should stay at, places that I kind of recommend. Now, one thing too I'll say before we get started is, a lot of people might be wondering, should I stay downtown, should I stay on the Strip? Well, one thing you can do, and I've done this, me and my wife have done this several times in the past, is depending on how long your stay, if it's at least 3, maybe 4 nights or more, you might want to consider splitting your trip, maybe staying at least 1 night or 2 nights downtown, and then splitting that with staying a couple nights on the Strip. It's might be a little bit of a pain in the butt having to check out and then check into another hotel, but I think overall it's kind of worth it. You get the best of both worlds between downtown and the Strip. So that's something to consider when choosing your hotel and deciding where you want to stay. Now, getting back to places I would recommend, as you can see, the Strip is definitely there's a whole bunch of properties up and down there. There's the South End, the Central End, North End. So starting, and I'm going to try and group these try to base this off, but mainly between the South End and the central part of the Strip. And I tried to break them down into 3 tiers. You have your bottom tier or your more budget-friendly hotels. And granted, prices can be vary throughout the year. Typically during the week is going to be the cheapest time to stay. Weekends typically are going to be double. So just keep that in mind. But some of the places I've said for the bottom tier hotels, I would look at the Luxor, which is down here on the South End. New York, which is also in the South End, but not quite as far south. Then I would also recommend Bally's and the Flamingo. Now, of those 4, I would say that probably the best pool areas are probably at the Luxor and the Flamingo. Seem to have the best pools out of those 4. New York probably has the best dining options as far as not just having a lot of restaurants, but a lot that will fit various types of budgets as well. It's one of my favorite dining selections, I think, in Vegas, I would say, is New York anyway. As far as attractions and entertainment goes, the Luxor has a lot of different shows there. For rooms, Bally's seems to have the nicest rooms. They're kind of renovated, fairly large rooms as well for the price. Luxor's rooms are also fairly spacious for a budget property. As far as the theming goes, Flamingo's more of a classic feel. Luxor has like the Egyptian pyramid theme to it. Obviously, New York has the New York City theme to it, which it does really well. As far as the overall vibe, I think New York has probably the best out of the 4. Bally's really doesn't have much of a theme. It's just kind of plain, granted, but they are changing it over. They're going to be renovating Bally's and turning it into a new property called the Horseshoe. I'm not sure what type of theming it's going to have. It might be kind of an Old West theme, possibly, or just in general, just an old school classic vibe, I would suppose. I do know also both Bally's and Flamingo both have in-room mini fridges that you can use for your own items if you wish to. So if that's important, that's something to check out. Moving on to the middle tier, and these are ones that are going to, obviously, you're going to be spending a little bit more than your budget or your bottom tier properties, but they're going to probably have more amenities, whatever. The pools are typically better, maybe more dining selections, but not quite as pricey as your upper tier hotels. So the ones that I would recommend there would be the MGM Grand there on the south end of the Strip. If you do book the MGM Grand when you're getting a room, avoid the West Wing room. It's the cheapest room, but it's really tiny and have a very small window in the room. It's almost like a large walk-in closet. Spend the extra $10 a night and stay at the Grand King or Grand Queen room. Those are a lot more spacious and a better option than staying at the West Wing room. Also, you would want to, a couple other mid-tier properties would be Paris, Las Vegas, and Planet Hollywood. And then finally, also, I would recommend the Mirage. Where's that? Right over here. Now, the Mirage isn't going to be the Mirage for very much longer. By the end of this year, around the fall of 2022, it's going to become the Hard Rock Hotel. Whether or not it stays a mid-tier property or goes up to a luxury property, my guess is it'll probably still stay a mid-tier, but it's one you want to try and check out as soon as you can if you get the chance. Of those four, when it comes to pool areas, certainly the Mirage and MGM probably have the best ones and certainly the biggest. Also, both the MGM does have like a day club, which is like a big beach party with DJs and so forth. They also have a what's called a lazy river in the pool complex as well. The Mirage also has a separate pool area which is called Bear, which is a topless pool area for adults only, obviously. So those are pretty popular pool areas in Vegas. When it comes to the dining options, I think Planet Hollywood might have overall the best dining options, as they're also connected to the Miracle Mile shops, which offers tons of different restaurants there, as well as a lot of entertainment options and shows can be there at the Planet Hollywood area. Paris is also good as far as dining selections go. Really, all four of them do. My personal favorites are at Paris and Planet Hollywood. Both of those two offer, both Paris and Planet Hollywood have the mini fridges in their rooms as well. I think as far as the overall size and condition of the room, Planet Hollywood seems to have the larger of the four rooms, though MGM's Grand King room's not too bad either. And let's see here. As far as location goes, obviously I would say Paris probably has the best location, as it's pretty much right around the center part of the strip. Paris is also connected to Bally's, which I just mentioned earlier. Planet Hollywood's location isn't too bad, and as you can see here, Mirage, a little bit kind of like north center of the strip, but it's pretty close to being the center. MGM is going to be a little bit further south, but they are off the monorail train, which also stops at Bally's in Paris as well. So moving on to the upper tier properties, there is of course we have the Wynn, which is kind of like north center of the strip. Where's that? Right there. This is considered one of the nicest 5-star hotels in Vegas. You also have the Venetian, which is a little bit further south from the Wynn. It's actually practically next door, but there's such huge properties, they take up so much space. But then there's my favorite as far as your upper tier, and that's the Cosmopolitan. That definitely has the best location of the three that I'm mentioning here. All these places all have good dining options. Also really nice pools and day clubs. I think the one at the Venetian gets a lot of high marks. I think it's called the Towel Day Club and pool area there. I would say Venetian and Wynn's pool complexes are a lot larger than the Cosmos, but and also Venetian has a sister property also on site called the Palazzo. The Wynn also has the Encore. I think you have access to either pool areas. So if you're staying at Wynn, you're going to have access to both the Wynn pools as well as the Encore pools as well. And let's see here, I think, but my personal favorite of those three is the Cosmo, mainly due to the fact that they have the terrace rooms that have the balconies outside where you can get a good view of the strip, and especially if you're able to, as you can see, Cosmo's pretty much right by the Bellagio, so you can also get views of the Bellagio fountains. So that's pretty much a quick rundown of the strip hotels I would recommend. Going to the downtown area, I think the ones that I would recommend the most, and once again, I would say that you have your budget properties, then you have mid-tier, and there is one upper tier one. Grant, those are going to be different when you're comparing them to the strip properties, but as far as your budget ones go, your bottom tier, you're going to have the Four Queens. And what's good about that place is the Four Queens does not charge resort fees. And before I go any further, you're probably asking, what are resort fees? That's just an extra fee that the hotels typically charge on top of the base rates to mainly cover maintenance, the pool, other things, like local calls. Not that anyone ever uses the phone in hotel rooms anymore. And a lot of other basic services. It's kind of bullshit, to be honest with you. But I think it's just something they use to make more money when people are charging through a third-party vendor. And by the way, too, I am going to put a link down below as far as the best way to book a hotel room. So that's going to be down in the description area. So feel free to click on that just to get a little bit better idea on what the best way to book a hotel room. Anyhow, anyhow too, getting back to the hotels downtown, there's also the D, which is pretty much budget friendly as well. Then you also have the Plaza, which doesn't really sit right on Fremont Street. It just kind of overlooks Fremont Street. And then if you want to go a little bit higher up the tier, willing to spend a little extra money, there's also the Golden Nugget. And then if you want to go a little higher than that, there's Circa. Now, Circa for downtown could be considered upper tier, but when you compare it to the hotels on the Strip, it's really more mid-tier. Of those properties, certainly Circa has the best and biggest pool area. You can get free access by staying at Circa, but also if you're staying at the D, which is the sister property to the Circa, you can also get free access to their pool as well. The Four Queens doesn't have a pool area, but you do have access to the pool at Binion's. Golden Nugget is also known for having a really nice pool. They have a big water slide that goes through like a fish aquarium or shark aquarium. And then the Plaza does also have a pool. It's kind of like a rooftop pool, much like Circa's, just a lot smaller, a little bit more of a laid-back pool experience there. The D does have a pool, but it's really small. It's like comparable to a pool you might have at a Best Western. So if you're staying at the D, if you want to go to the pool, you just might as well go over to Circa, where you have free access to their pool as well. Dining options. Most of the hotels downtown are going to have anywhere from 3 to 4 restaurants per property. Not as large of a selection as what you get on the Strip. However, the Golden Nugget does have probably the largest selection of restaurants. I think they have about 7 or 8 restaurants. Same thing with Circa. I think Circa has about 6 or 7 themselves. So overall, that's pretty much a quick rundown. All these properties do have mini fridges in their rooms, as far as I know, as of right now. Anyway, most of these places don't have a whole lot of shows. Each property might have one show they might have, but you do have the Fremont Street Experience, which oftentimes has several live bands playing at several different times, right on down the street. Now that we've covered downtown, there might be a few other things too. Now, typically, as far as off-strip properties, and those are properties that aren't downtown and they're not on the Strip, they're just kind of out on the outskirts of town by themselves. And normally, I would say specifically for first-time vacationers going to Vegas, I would probably not go to those places. Not that they're bad properties at all. They typically have everything you could want in them and more, and are priced a little bit more reasonably, but they typically don't have anything within walking distance, so you're going to be driving a lot. So those places, you definitely would want to rent a car. Fortunately, most of them have free parking, but those places would be more for, say, if you have family living in Vegas and you're visiting family, and especially if you happen to have kids with you, these might be better options. Unless you do really want to stay on the Strip, and so I'm just going to throw out a handful of them. There is the Red Rock Resorts, which is out on the west side of Las Vegas. It's actually towards Summerlin. This is more of a high-end resort, so do expect to be spending a little bit more on room rates. On the very south end of Las Vegas Boulevard, in fact, it's so far south you're not even going to see it on the map, is South Point Casino. And then out on the east side of Vegas in Henderson, you have like Sunset Station. Now, all three of these I just mentioned all have bowling alleys. They all have movie theaters in them. They all have nice pool areas and a generous selection of restaurants to fit any budget. So they're all really good options. A couple other off-strip locations might be the Palms Casino, which has just recently opened. Now, the Palms is not too terribly far from the Strip. It's about right here, if you can see my cursor here. That might be the one off-strip place that you could possibly get away without necessarily needing a car. Because, yeah, I wouldn't walk to the Strip from the Palms, but I would, you could just take a quick Uber ride to the Strip and it wouldn't cost a whole lot. This one does also have a movie theater inside and just recently opened and seems to be really nice. It's always been a popular place. They just shut down during the pandemic and it took them a couple years to reopen as they were going through a ownership change. Another one too, and this is specifically too if you're going to if you happen to be attending a convention in Vegas at the Las Vegas Convention Center, the Westgate. Now, here it shows the Westgate to kind of be by the Strip. It's really a little bit off the Strip. But the Westgate is located right next door to the Las Vegas Convention Center. It is a very nice property, so it's certainly, if you're attending a convention there at the Convention Center, then the Westgate would be a good off-strip property to stay at. Now, say if you're wanting to stay at a hotel that does not have an attached casino to it. That's what you're kind of wanting. Maybe you are traveling to Vegas on business or you're having an extended stay. There are quite a few nice properties you can stay at that don't have all the noise and traffic that you would get in a normal resort. The one that often gets the most recommended is the Vdara. The Vdara kind of sits behind the Cosmopolitan and the Aria. It's a very nice hotel. The rooms are really, compared to the rest of the places, not too priced, or really kind of priced fairly mid-tier level, but certainly has a luxury feel to it. And all the rooms, I think most of the rooms, if not all of them, all have kitchenettes. I normally don't stay at places like this just because I like to have the full experience of having the casino and all the different restaurant options available. And that's like kind of the downside. Most of these properties I'm talking about, like the Vdara, might only have one or two restaurants on their property. But with the Vdara, you do have a quick walk to basically three different places: the Aria, the Cosmopolitan, and the Bellagio. Another one you could check out too is the MGM Signature, which sits way behind the MGM Grand. It actually has a connected walkway that will take you to the MGM Grand. But those rooms too also have kitchenettes in them, as well as some of the rooms there at the MGM Signature also have balcony rooms as well. So those are like two of the non-casino properties that might be worth checking into. So that's going to pretty much end this video here on my hotel reviews. I would like to ask you to please like, share, and subscribe. Certainly help me grow the channel and help with the YouTube algorithm. Hope to get maybe another video out here before I go on vacation in a couple weeks. I'll be in Vegas, so we'll be bringing a lot more content. So till then, this concludes the video, and we'll see you next time.